Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, some major leaks for episodes 7 and 8 occurred overnight while I was asleep. So, what I'm going to be doing is, of course, breaking down these leaks for us all. But before I do get into it, if you don't want to have anything spoiled for these upcoming final 2 episodes of season 1, I would obviously suggest that you click off from here and perhaps go and watch another video. So with that being said, let us jump right in and start off with this particular shot. So to begin with, we have what is a shot of Moraine, Rand, and I believe Ishamael at the Eye of the World. Now, interestingly enough, they are on a sort of what I would call a platform potentially, or at least just they're on top of the ancient Aes Sedai symbol. And what's happening in this scene, it seems that Ishamael is channeling into Moraine. Now, one thing to really note here that you cannot see, of course, is the fact that his weaves are not tainted by the Dark One. And so that's really interesting to note straight away. Another thing to note is, of course, that Rand is kind of slumped out on the floor. So it looks like something has gone on a little bit earlier in this scene, and it's perhaps the fact that Moraine has kind of come to his aid, rushing over to him, and is trying to protect him, because obviously if we've had the moment already where Rand kind of starts to channel in that moment, and he kind of goes on a sort of, I don't know if you want to call it, back and forth with Ishamael in this moment, and he's kind of lost the duel, of course, because he doesn't know what he's doing. Moraine, of course, naturally is going to come to the rescue of him, as she kind of stated in episode 6, where she said, I would have done that for any of you. So it's really interesting. But yeah, I'm going to play the clip out. So yeah, it's very much the sort of thing he's, channeling a weave into Moraine, and it looks like it's kind of, I don't know really what the weave is doing to her, because obviously it's quite hard to see, except she's in some sort of agonizing pain, because she's like this, looking up at the camera, of course, for this shot. But yeah, really interesting. And something else I might note as well, and I think this is to do with the interactive 360-degree trailer we got. Some of these markings on the floor, along with this ancient Aes Sedai symbol, might actually already have been shown in that interactive trailer, because if you look around in that trailer, you can see, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the whole of this kind of floor in this scene. So what I might do actually is, during the editing of this video, I will go back to that interactive trailer and see if my kind of assumption is correct. And if it is, of course, I can then, freely show you what they are all standing on top of. So yeah, there's that. So that's the first kind of shot from one of the episodes. I would presume this is from the end of episode 7, probably moving into episode 8. So let's move on to the next shot. Now, what we've got here is 2 women on either side of Lord Aegulmar. We've got Nynaeve and Agreen, and then it's really, really hard to make out, but I would say maybe one of them would be Aegulmar's sister, Lady Amelise, I believe is her name off the top of my head. And the fourth and final woman is really hard to make out, because this obviously kind of GIF that I'm looking at is absolutely the lowest of low resolutions we could possibly have. And then to top it all off, the scene is in the night time as well. So it's really hard to make out what is going on here. Let me move this clip along to see if we can get anything else out of it. Now, it's really hard to make out what is going on here, so I'm going to leave it at that. So interestingly enough, I'm going to kind of combine the next shots, because they're all connected. These shots are surrounding, in particular, Agreen and Nynaeve, and they seem to be kind of linked in a sense with the channeling that they're doing, because they're channeling first and foremost. So yeah, it's really interesting to begin with. So we've got Agreen Nynaeve, and then I believe there's 3 other women, and they're all kind of forming a link, I would say. And obviously we have the main, I would suggest, channel or the Aes Sedai at the heart of it, controlling all of their power. As we always know, there's always that kind of focal point in a linking of Aes Sedai or Asher Aman, and so she's got control of everybody's one power here, and it seems like they've kind of started weaving this huge amount of the one power through all 5 of them, and they are kind of directing it towards, I would say, a group of Trollocs, and we've got shots of kind of Nynaeve and Egwene in the process of doing this with their hands up, kind of like we would see with the Aes Sedai, using their hand movements as a way to kind of showcase what they're doing with the one power for the show. And so I think Egwene, this is the most she's ever kind of, channeled in her life, of course, and the vast amounts of one power, coursing through her is almost shocking her. Whereas Nynaeve is in a kind of state of euphoria, I would say, just looking at this, still image of her now. I think she can't believe she's channeling this much of the one power through her. So yeah, that's really cool. And then we get this, shot to end it where it looks like a huge lightning bolt comes down from where they're all channeling. And I would say this is obviously quite naturally outside. Perhaps they're near the Blight or they're in Faldara still. But yeah, so this lightning strikes, I would say, a huge number of Trollocs, and they get absolutely disintegrated into pieces and smithereens as a result of being the focal point of the attack. So I would say there's obviously at least Moraine there that we know of, who's an Aes Sedai. So I would say from just the brief knowing of who is there and what's going on, I would say Moraine would be the head of the link here, and she'll be the one directing this particular weave of lightning. And of course, we have precedents for Moraine kind of channeling a huge lightning bolt from the first episode, and so it would be quite plausible to think that it is Moraine at the head of this link. Right, let's now move on, as I spent quite a lot of time there. Now, these last 2 shots are really interesting, and it's to do with Rand and Ishamael, and we actually now know who is playing the role of Ishamael in the show. I will get to that right at the end of this, but I just want to go over the shots that we've got right now of Rand. Now, what's really interesting, I've seen an actual still of this particular GIF that we've got here, and I've got it obviously still saved on my laptop, and it's very clear, so I can kind of give a better understanding of what we're seeing here. But essentially, Rand is now channeling the tainted half of the one power, the male half, that we can quite clearly see, and it seems to be, I would suggest, he's either kind of going back and forth between present day and the past, or just another kind of age potentially, because we've got 2 shots, as I said. In one of them, Rand is in kind of the present day when he's, I would say, at the Eye of the World channeling, but it kind of goes back and forth between present day where Rand is, but also into this kind of, you could almost call it dream world, where potentially Ishamael is showing Rand the kind of future he could have had with Egwene, because Egwene is there in this kind of future that Ishamael is showing him if he would to, I would say, join the Dark One, or, join the dark side of the dark side. Why do I keep calling it the dark side? Join the Dark One and, join the bad side. And what's really interesting here, as we saw in that exclusive teaser trailer that I released on the channel early this week, we saw a cradle. Now we've got confirmation of what that cradle was. It's obviously a cradle of Rand and Egwene's child that Ishamael is showing Rand in this kind of vision of what his future could be. So I think he's really trying to tempt Rand into joining him and his cause. So I think there's this kind of what you would get in terms of like a business pitch of where Ishamael is kind of pitching his, what he can offer Rand if he was to kind of accept and join his side of the kind of the situation that's going on. We've got the light and the dark with the dark one, and so I feel it's kind of like a moment where Rand is being tempted by what he's being shown here, because he's obviously showing Rand everything he's obviously ever wanted, that we saw and have seen him speak about with Egwene not having marriage, not having kids, going down the route of a wisdom, but now of course she's going to become an Aes Sedai. That still applies. So I think it's a real sort of tempting moment for Rand in the episode that this is going to be playing out in. And I would suggest potentially this has happened before the first scene I broke down of Rand slumped over Moraine. I would say he's been tempted by this and he's kind of rejected it, and then Ishamael has now, of course, had enough of it and kind of let loose of the one power, or maybe it's the true power, the true source, because there is no taint on it. So maybe Ishamael, in this present moment, being so close to the Eye of the World, and if they've made the change of kind of Sheol Ghul being in Eye of the World now, which is something we still need to talk about in another video, he obviously will be able to tap into the true source, as obviously the Dark One has control over that. And so I think this first and last kind of scene are linked together. This last one that I'm currently discussing is before the first one that I discussed in this video. So yeah, these are all really cool shots and they give away a lot about what is going on in this episode. So now, as I did state, I would go over who the actor is who is playing Ishamael in the show, and so I'm going to do that right now for you all. So as promised, I said I would go over who is playing Ishamael on the show. The actor who's playing him is called Fares. Now he's a Swedish Lebanese actor. In terms of any sort of films that I've ever watched him, I would hardly say anything. So in terms of the films he's been in, I really have never heard of him, let alone watched any of these videos. So he is a kind of fairly unknown, particularly to myself when it comes to his work. I'm just kind of going through his catalogue of works, and it's really difficult to see anything sort of, oh, he was in that. Although saying that, actually, he was in Chernobyl. That's obviously from 2019, which was a real interesting watch. And if you haven't watched that, I would suggest you do. So obviously that's a lot of what actually happened in our history. But in terms of films, I would say maybe his most well-known film would be Zero Dark 30. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see just how he plays Ishamael in the show. And yeah, going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds in these final 2 episodes. So yeah, that is the end of the video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I've tried my best to leave it looking as visually pleasing as I can without showing you the images themselves. But yes, really interesting. Right, let's end it here. So I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new around here as well. And of course, I will catch you all in another real-time video.